CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It is the language for describing the presentation of web pages, where to include the colors, how our layout should be, and how you want to present your text, what font, what color, size, and all. These are all we are making our web pages to be presentable to the users. And CSS is designed to make style sheets for the web, like it is independent of HTML and can be used with any XML based markup language. Now cascading means following designs, following of styles. Okay, style is adding designs or styling our HTML pages, and sheets are writing our style in different documents. Like it was proposed in 1994 and it got published in on 1998 on 12th May. So you can use CSS documents. You can code CSS code in different editors like Visual Studio Code, Atom, Brackets, Espresso, Notepad plus plus. Coming to the syntax of CSS, CSS consists of selectors. Selectors are the elements that which we are going to target on. Selector, opening bracket, then property 1, the value, property 2, like if at all if you want to add background and what color, text alignment, center. Selector element will be for which element you want to design, that it will be selecting that you are targeting that element. And always it remains the same whether we apply internal or external styling. We will be learning in detail about what is internal and external styling. There are few basic selectors, like we can go for tag designing, we can select for tags, we can select IDs of the elements, we can select the classes of the elements, and all forms are in key value pair. If you see here, it is property 1 and its value, this is key and its value, it will be in a key value pair. And keys are those properties like or the attributes like color, font size, background, width, height. It could be width, how much it by default we need to mention in pixels, otherwise it will be in the percentages, we already knew it. And value is associated with these properties of whether it is which color, of what could be an a height. These are the property key value pairs that which we are going to mention here. I have mentioned you an example for the tag. Here we are targeting, our selector is h1 tag, where I want the color h1 text to be colored in red and text alignment should be in center. And this is an example, one more example what I coded. It is for example for ID. For element I have given an ID called as unique. So for that element it will be directly, ID will be an unique identifier for that element. If at all if you are having many text boxes, each text box is given an unique ID. So whenever we want to target that element, one first input box, so you are going to call it by its ID. So for that say ID is a ID, that ID I want to be in a green color. So this is this is one example where I have shown you about how are we like using selectors, tags or IDs. And CSS comments, if you see in CSS document, if at all if you are going to comments, generally we know that whatever we are putting in comments, that won't be rendered on the browser. That means it is not displayed on the browser. It will be helping us to understand, helping the developer to understand our for what you are writing the code. Okay, it will be helping us to understand our code better and makes it much more readable and focused. So it helps us to debug our code. And there are two ways to comment, that is single line comment and multiple lines comment. So single line comments, this is the way. So the in the so forward slash and star asterisk, the tag we are going to mention, and close the comment tags. Okay, here is how we are going to comment our multiple lines. So I want to comment this tag for whatever design I have mentioned here, that I want to comment. So multiple lines we are gonna comment it like this. And CSS, how are we going to use CSS? How are we going to write CSS in our HTML file? There are three different ways that we can write our CSS, design our HTML page using CSS. That is inline CSS, internal CSS, and external CSS. According to the priority order, first comes inline, next is internal, and next is external CSS. So inline CSS means within the line within the line of the element we are going to mention how we want that element to be designed, like whether it is a font of that element, text of the height of the element, width of the element, whatever it might be, how we are trying to design it. So inline CSS is, before CSS had been introduced, the only way we were applying our styles in the HTML page was inline only. Okay, not a, but it is not an efficient way. Why? Because for each and everything, if at all, if we are using h1 tag multiple times in our code, if we for each and every time whenever we are mentioning h1 tag, we have to design it in the same line. We have to mention what color of the text color should be there. So styling should be done individually. So that's why we are saying the coding part is duplicacy will be increased, that is redundancy of the code is increasing. So it is not an efficient way to write, as it has a lot of redundancy, and it is self content for which you are mentioning, for that tag only it will be. So if we are mentioning multiple times h1 tag, so for the first time whenever we mentioned it, it will be taking the style what we have mentioned in the line, and in the second h1 tag it doesn't duplicate it. It doesn't follow the same style. So once again, we need to mention. So in that way, the redundancy of the code is been increasing and uniquely applied on each element. The idea of separation of concerns here was totally lost. So for example, how are we going to mention inline style is for h3 tag style. I'm mentioning style attribute. For style attribute, in the style attribute, I am giving color to be as red, and the text is have a great day. I have closed the h3 tag. And the second example is paragraph. The paragraph style I mentioned is color to be as green. This is the key and this is the value. So the text what I have mentioned in the paragraph is I did this, I did that. Okay, this is how it looks. Inline CSS. Next is internal CSS. Internal CSS is within the HTML file, with the help of the style tag, we can apply styles within the HTML file. Here, somewhat to up to some extent, the redundancy is been removed, because in the HTML file only we are separate. See, in the style tags, in the head, tag, in between the style tag, we are gonna mention what style should be adopted by that HTML page elements. Okay, here I have targeted h1 tag in my HTML page. The color should be as red, and the other thing goes like this. Within the style tags, we need to mention whatever styling part styling code we are gonna mention use for that HTML page. Okay, so here also the idea of separation of concerns is still lost, uniquely applied on a single document only. So this is also the second priority. And external CSS, that is with the help of the link tag in the head tag, we can apply styles. Reference is added to that. If you see here in this example, within the head tag we are mentioning the link. That is, we are gonna write the styling part in a different document, and we are going to call it in our HTML page. We are not writing the code in the HTML page. We are writing it in a separate CSS file. If my CSS file is first.css, that I am gonna reference here href. I'm giving, see, link tag consists of a attribute called relation. That is, what is it is related to style sheets. Okay, style sheet, and what kind of a type it is. What type it is, that is text or CSS. And href, where is that file? That's reference, that source should be given here. Okay, and if once it is mentioned, it is gonna take it and adapt it for the HTML page that we are gonna write. And by this, using this, whatever file we are writing, designing CSS file, that file, in the text file, when you are writing something, designing CSS file, so you have to save it as .css file. Okay, that will be understanding it is a styling sheet. And redundancy is removed totally. The idea of separation of concerns is also been maintained and uniquely applied to each document. So for one HTML page, if you are referencing this the, this style sheet, then for that HTML page, it will be uniquely applied to that document. And if you want to go with the next HTML page, you need to refer it again. You need to call it again. So in that way, external CSS works. So here is our implementation. I'll show you how it is. Here I am implementing all the three types of CSS. If you see in the HTML page only, here under the root element, I have head tag. Under the head tag, I have given HTML, title as an HTML. So if you see, I have added a link. So this is an external CSS. So my CSS file name is first.css. So I am calling it here, and within the style tags I am mentioning h1 tag, the color to be as green. The key is color and value is green. So this is internal CSS. Within the HTML page only, I am HTML file only, I am mentioning the style. This is external, this is internal. And if you observe here in the paragraph, I have given style equals to color equals to red. Color red. This paragraph will be in red color. And if you see one more example, ID equals to center. My text alignment, the ID for this paragraph element I gave you as center. This paragraph will be in a pink and center alignment. Okay, so these all things I have mentioned over there. So this is a single line styling. So inline styling. So this program gives you an implementation of all three types of CSS. Okay, now let's see what are the selectors. Okay, the selector is used to target elements and apply CSS. The three simple selectors what we have is element selector, ID selector, and class selector. Priority of selectors, I told you ID, class, and then element. Okay, element selector will be used to select elements, HTML elements by its name, like how we have targeted h1 tag. Okay, here we have our selector is tag. It might be h1 tag, h3 tag, or a paragraph or input. Okay, so we selected the heading tag and then change the color property, that is text color should be as a red. Now whatever is written in this tag, it will be the text color will be in a red color. Second selector is ID selector. The ID attribute is used to select HTML element. So here it is used to target specific or unique element. As I gave you an example, if at all if you are having 2 3 multiple h1 tags you are using in the document, then if you want to target the second h1 element, then you can target that second h1 element using an ID, that is a unique name given to that element. Okay, how do we do it? Here is the example. Okay, target, call it with that ID. So before that we need to put a hash value and give the style part. So this is in the HTML page, I have mentioned it like this: h1 tag ID equals to unique. Within the tag you need to mention this attribute. Okay, so we selected the ID and then change the color property, that is text color to red. And next one is class selector. We have one more attribute called class. Whenever we will be using a group of elements, a specific class of the element, then we are going to, when we have to target a specific class of the element, then we are going to use the class selector. How we do it is, if you see my class name is group. If you see here in the HTML page, I have mentioned class equals to group. I am calling this, I am targeting this group, and group whatever we are mentioning in this, that will be colored to be as a red. We selected the class and then change the color property, that is text color to red. Now whatever is written in this tag, that will be taking a text color will be red, taken as red. Okay, class selectors we have done. Next is implementation of all these three selectors we will be seeing. So in this I'll show you the execution also. So in this document there are three different selectors. See here I have mentioned this is external styling, this is internal styling, this is inline styling here. Okay, so here is the output of it. So here I'm calling my first CSS file. and the style in internal styling I gave here, and external styling is from the first .css file what I gave. Okay, so like that it will be considering. Let's see how it works by opening it through live server. Okay, fine. Till then we will complete our thing. Okay. So next is implementation of all these three selectors. It goes like this. See, here we are calling it by tag. Okay, tag. Here we are calling it by ID. See, what is the ID? Center one is the ID. For center one, we have mentioned the designing part, and class. This center two is the class. So before that we get dot. So center two we are calling, and the designing we have mentioned it here. Okay. Next is CSS colors. CSS, there are different color schemes in CSS. Three widely used techniques are as follows, like RGB, hex code, and RGBA. RGB is red, green, blue. So it takes the three parameter. Three parameters basically corresponds to red, green, and blue. The value of each parameter may vary from 0 to 255. For example, I gave RGB 25500. That means it is a red color. So it is red color, it means color red. And hex is hex code. Whenever we are starting, it should start with hash symbol and comprises of 6 numbers which are further divided into 3 sets, that is three, red, green, and blue. So for each and every color we are mentioning, taking 2 zeros, that is single set value can vary from 00 to 09 and AA to FF. For example, here this color, this code, hex code, means color red, and RGBA is, this starts with RGB and takes 4 parameters, that is alpha. A stands for alpha, red, green, blue, and alpha. Value of the first 3 parameters may vary from 0 to 255, and the last parameter ranges from 0 to 1, that is from 0, 0 0.1, 0 0.2, like that. It goes like this. So here is an example RGB, this means color red. So implementation with the example, here I have given the code where I have mentioned center. This was an ID, no? Center. That ID, I want the color to be red and alpha. Okay. So here I gave an example. You can check it out. And CSS background. Background means there are different ways how by which CSS can have an effect on the HTML elements. If at all, few of them are color, repeat, image, position, and attachment. Color is used to set the color of the background. Repeat is used to determine if the image has to be repeated or not. If it is repeating, then how it should do that. So, and image is whenever you want to set an image as a background, you need to mention as an image. And position used to determine the position of the image, that is whether it is left aligned, right aligned, center alignment, or totally for the whole background. And attachment, it basically helps in controlling the scrolling down, mechanism of scrolling. When you are trying, the attachment will be helping you to scroll down. So here if you see, this is an example implementation of background property here. So this is what I want to tell you, where I have mentioned. So here we are using external CSS, okay, as well as we are using, you see, for the whole HTML page, I want the background to be this color with a hex code I have mentioned, and background color also I have mentioned it here. Okay, height, width also I have mentioned, and the paragraph I have given here, paragraph background, paragraph images, all these things, position, background, repeat, no repeat I have mentioned, background position, that to be a center, width 100%, height 600 pixels. So these all should be mentioned. The style, whatever we are mentioned, this is inline internal styling, this is external styling. Okay, I didn't give any inline styling code here. Okay, paragraph I am mentioning here, and this paragraph, how does it reflect, that could be seen. Just now I have started the live server, no, look at it. So whatever I have said, so it is showing you the background. What is the width? 100% I gave background width. Height I gave, Okay, so in this way it is showing us the paragraph. Okay, and and here this is CSS background, and next is CSS border. CSS border, it will be helping up setting the border for HTML elements. That is, there are four properties for setting up the border. That is, width of the border, style of the border, color of the border, and radius of the border. Width sets the width of the border. Style will be setting the style of the border. That is, whether you want the border to be as dashed line or a solid line. And color sets the color of the border. Radius, it determines the roundness of the border. Okay, you can set the border for specifically where right top, right, and bottom and left. Okay, top, right, bottom, left, you can specifically mention it. And we can also club top and bottom together, and same goes with left and right. Okay, so here if you see, for example, I gave border width is 2 pixel, 5 pixel, like this you can club and mention it. Okay, border width, and it sets the top and bottom, two and left and right. See, if you mention border width as 2 pixel and 5 pixel, it sets the top and bottom as 2 pixel, left and right as 5 pixel. Border can also be set in a single line, that is border 2 pixel solid blue. That means for all the commonly for all the four, top, bottom, right and left, it will be setting the same color. Okay. So this is one example. The same thing we have already seen. So, and last topic in CSS is CSS box model. Every element in CSS can be represented using the box model. See, it allows us to add a border and define space between the content, and it helps the developer to develop and manipulate the elements. So, what are the elements what we have? There are four edges here for the box, that is content edge, padding edge, border edge, margin edge. Content edge, it comprises of actual content. Padding edge is, it lies between the content and the border edge. Border edge is, padding is followed by the border edge, and margin edge is, it is the outside of the border and the controls the margin of the element. Whenever you go to the Chrome execution, go right click and go to the inspect, you can find all the elements that are used in HTML5. In the right hand side there will be a box model. I'll show you how does it look. Okay, so this is about CSS. So we'll see how our CSS is working. This is the program. See, this is the HTML. Within the HTML file, I have mentioned all the three internal, inline, internal, and external. No? That is the execution here. I have given a registration form. I have designed the background to be as pink color. And here the container part I have given as the yellow color. And these are the elements. You know how we have inserted, how to create a form in HTML. No? So this is an input and a label. This is the label, and then this is the input type equals to text. Last name is also a text. Here email is label, and the input text equals to email. So here we need to mention the email. Password, it is again a text or a number we need to give. So next is date of birth. Here clearly we will be specifying as a type as text, date. So that's why it is showing us the date. So how are we getting your first name within? So that is what we have mentioned. I have mentioned it to be as required. That's why it is asking me to please fill out the field. Without filling, if I say submit, it will be register. It will be asking me to please fill out this field. And how we are showing this your first name within the text box is using placeholder. Okay. Just go through the forms what I have mentioned. In this way, we are styling our HTML page. Thank you all. Keep learning.